So this is session 4 of series 3 of Why Jesus Came. Now, across the Jordan River from where the Jewish people lived was an area which is known as the Decapolis, and that simply in Greek means 10 cities. And so it was an area of 10 cities that were very Greek in influence, even though by that time Rome was ruling them. It was an area where the culture was everything that God didn't want. And so in a way they were on the other side of the river physically, but they were also on the other side spiritually. Now we read in Mark 4 that one day Jesus said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side." And we tend to read it a bit like, "Oh, let's go and have a picnic over there. There's a nice spot on the other side of the lake." But I think the disciples would have been a bit more like saying to Jesus, "Are you sure? You know what it's like over there. It's a terrible pagan place." They were leaving the safety of the godly place that they knew and going into enemy territory. And we read that as they went across the lake, a terrible storm arose. Now it was more than just the storms that come from time to time on that lake, because the disciples were experienced fishermen and they'd dealt with many of those storms. But this says they were terrified. They thought they were going to drown. There were waves crashing over the top of the boat. Jesus was going to the other side to confront the forces of evil. And the forces of evil did not want him to get there. And so the confrontation began right on the lake. And Jesus was sleeping through it. So why didn't the storm wake him? Well, Jesus knew that he had power over anything that evil could throw at him. And when the disciples shook him awake, he stood up and he just said to the storm, he rebuked the wind and he said to the waves, "Quiet, be still." And immediately the storm died down and there was calm. Now remember that these men were well schooled in the scriptures. They would have known Psalm 107, which reads, "He stilled the storm to a whisper. The waves of the sea were hushed. They were glad when it grew calm, and he guided them to their desired haven." They knew that they had just seen this in action, and that's what made them really terrified. Who is this that even the winds and the waves obey him? Now remember that the disciples were still in their very early years of relationship with Jesus. They knew him as a great rabbi, but here I think they get perhaps their first glimpse that he's more than just a rabbi. He is God. We're called to confront the forces of evil, but the forces of evil don't like it, and they will try to stop us. They might try to throw us off in every way possible, perhaps causing distractions that we won't get round to doing something, or they'll try to frighten us. Now, some years ago, a group of us were going to pray in a lady's house because something nasty had been appearing there at 2:10 a.m. And even a couple of her family members were so frightened by this that they hightailed it back to Melbourne before they'd even had breakfast. So we had got a group of people together and we had to wait for one person for the next day. So in the night before, I was awoken to the most horrible presence in the room. I can't really describe what it was like, but I know my heart was absolutely pounding. The cat on the bed growled. The dog up the other end of the house started barking. I realised this was something pretty evil, and so I knew what to do. I said, "In the name of Jesus, be gone," and it went. It did leave a smell behind it, a smell of sulphur. And when I looked across at the clock, it was 2:10 a.m. Something was trying to frighten us off so that we wouldn't go and pray in that house, but it didn't stop us. We prayed and the house was freed from whatever it was. If we're going to confront the forces of evil, there will be storms. But just as Jesus calmed the storm on the lake, Jesus is the strength to overcome the forces of evil. So it's okay to have a healthy fear of the forces of evil, but to know that Jesus has won the victory, and it's by his power and his authority that we too can confront it.
For this purpose Christ was sickness